Hey, how you doing? Justin here. Today we're going to do an introduction to alternate tunings on the guitar. We're going to look at the four most common ones. That'll be drop D, double drop D, open G, and open D. Now, part of the point of this lesson is going to be to remove any fear of open tunings. It was something that I was real scared of when I was learning guitar. For some reason, it was always like, I thought it was going to be really difficult. I'd heard these rumors that the neck was going to move when you change the tuning and that, you're going to break strings and stuff all the time. That's mostly unfounded. If you retune your guitar by a lot, the neck might move just a little bit, but it really doesn't matter. You can pop in and out of alternate tunings very quickly. You don't have to worry about anything. Occasionally, you might break a string if you tune a string up a lot. The ones I'm going to show you are all tuning down, not up, so that's unlikely to be a problem. I will explain the ones where you might move up as well, if I remember. So yeah, don't be afraid of it. I'd really encourage you to just get in and try some of this stuff because it can be really fun, really creative. There's lots of great songs. I'm going to try and give you like 5 songs that use each one of the tunings that I'd recommend that you go and check out as well. All of, or nearly all of, I've got lessons on as well, so you might want to go and check that out. So enough talking, let's get into it a little bit, and we're going to start off with drop D tuning. So for drop D tuning, all we're doing is dropping the low E down to a D. Okay, now luckily for us, we've got an open D string, the 4th string. So if we play the 4th string and then the thicker string and tune it, till they sound the same. If you're if you're finding that difficult, you can also use a harmonic at the 12th fret. And then it'll give you the exact pitch. Always a good idea to tune up, by the way, so to sink down lower and then tune it up. So you'll hear now, particularly if you play a regular D chord, how big does that sound? It's amazing, the sound of this. Really nice way of playing a D chord like that is 7th fret on the 2nd and 3rd strings. Still just a D, but it's adding some fancy stuff. But part of the joy of these open tuning things is exploring ideas, is trying out new things, just without worrying too much about having to play a particular chord or a particular shape. Just try stuff out, and you're going to discover like really cool sounds that go along all of the way through. Now, drop D's got some really cool things going on. It's great for rock as well because we end up being able to play power chords with one finger. But first of all, I want to explain a little bit about what happens when you retune your guitar. Now, we've only touched the thicker string, right? So all of the chords that don't use the thicker string are the same. So you can still play regular C, A minor, any of these kind of A-shaped bar chords are going to stay the same, D chord, F, little mini F ones. Anything that doesn't use the thicker string stays the same. Power chords as well. I should point out as well, I'm going to be using some unusual fingerings, possibly for some of the chords, because I've actually got a fractured little finger right now. I've only just taken the splint off because I want to try and get it working again, and I figured this would be a good lesson for it, and I'm hoping I don't need to use my little finger too much. So what happens with the thicker string is we detuned it by one tone, by 2 frets. So any chords that used a note on the thicker string, we have to move that note up 2 frets. So let's say that we used to have a G power chord like this. Okay, you probably finger it like that. I'm not going to put my little finger down because it hurts, but like that. That would be the shape for a G power chord. But this string has been tuned down to, so we need to move it up to. So that would be a G power chord. A little bit confusing because you're on the 5th fret, and some of you would associate the 5th fret root note as being an A, but you've got to remember that we're down a tone now on that thicker string. So that would be a G, that would be an F, and that would be a D power chord. So you often get that in rock, like that's where you've got your 6-string root power chords now. Very simple way of doing that. Any other chords that you might have, like say an F chord, if you wanted to play a full F chord, you know that note, the note on the thicker string, has to go up 2 frets, so you'd end up refingering an F chord like this. Again, I'm putting my little finger in position but not pressing it down, but that's how you'd play an F chord, a regular F chord in the drop D tuning. So You can still do it. It's a little bit more complicated than the old one, but it removes the bar, so in some ways it's kind of easier as well. G chord is another real common one. Most of you are probably playing G chord like this with just the 2 fingers. That note obviously has to go up 2 frets. So that's now how you play a G. Lots of Neil Young songs use drop D, and he uses a lot of the open G chord, so this is definitely one that you want to get familiar. Really, it's only F and G, so F, this kind of, imagine just the F chord like that, and then moving your 3rd finger over onto the 3rd string of the thicker string, 3rd fret, 3rd string, the 3rd fret of the thicker string. So 3rd fret, nothing, muting the 5th string, 3rd fret, well, I can actually play the note, and it didn't hurt, yay! 2nd fret, 1st fret, 1st fret. I better not do too much of that or I'm going to get told off by my doctor. I think she watches my YouTube videos, so I need to be careful. Anyway, so yeah, that would be how you play an F chord and the G chord like that. And that's drop D tuning. Loads of great songs use drop D. The ones that I made a note of, the ones that I thought were the biggest songs, Killing in the Name Of by Rage Against the Machine uses that a whole heap, all of the way, this idea of just blocking the thicker strings there. Harvest Moon by Neil Young, beautiful song. Everlong by the Foo Fighters, another all-time classic. The Chain by Fleetwood Mac, if you want to get into some of that really nice finger-picking parts as well. And Hold On by Tom Waits, another beautiful one, uses some really, mostly kind of basic chords, but in a really beautiful way. All of those songs are going to teach you different things about the drop D tuning, so I'd recommend that you check all of them out. I'm pretty sure I have got lessons on all of those songs, so go and check that out. So that's a bit about drop D. Now, the next step along from that would be double drop D, where we tune the thinner string down a tone as well. So to get into double drop D, we're just tuning this thinner string down to a D. We've got the 4th string still as a reference. Again, going lower. Coming back up again, you can use a harmonic if you want. Now, the double drop D introduces a whole heap of cool things that with regular drop D, you're just using it really to get that lower sound. But when you're in double drop D, part of the beauty of that particular tuning is this extra note or a different note which can embellish some of the other regular open chords. So generally if you're playing a D chord and you're in double drop D, you want to lift off the 2nd finger. If you put it down, this would be the same as a D sus2 chord. We're doubling. Okay, it sounds a little out of tune. Better. Something else, I see, I'm just departing here for a second. One of the things about using drop tunings is sometimes you find that you're tweaking the notes a little bit more to make it sound right. And I tend to look at the tuner less and listen to the instrument more. So it feels like it wants to go up just a tiny bit. Sort it out. So don't be afraid to just tweak tunings just a little bit if you're in open tunings, particularly open G and open D. Keep your ears on it. So yeah, normally you'd play a D like that. If you wanted to play a D sus2, put the 2nd finger down like a regular D, you end up with a D sus2. But that can be one of the nice things about this tuning is most of the other open chords just kind of sound cool with the D if you just pretend it was in regular tuning. A chord. It's really an A add 4 now, but just sounds interesting. A minor, lovely. C, now it's a C add 9. Well, it doesn't really matter, it's called a C add 9, but it just sounds nice, right? So if we took a regular chord progression that was going C, A minor, to D, to G, G we'd have to move. I'll explain that one in a second. you can see it's just got all kinds of interesting things going on if you ignore the fact that it's in another tuning. And I think that's most of the time in double drop D what people are doing when they're writing. They're using it as a creative tool. And yeah, it's a super effective one for that. The G chord's a really interesting one here, because you think we had G when we were in drop D tuning, we had to move that note down, so we played it like that. But now we've tuned the thinner string down and we have to move that one up 2 frets. So we end up playing a G chord like that, exactly the same as we would have done at the in a regular tuning with 2 fingers, and just move it up 2 frets. The F chord becomes a little bit more sticky because we'd have that, and we'd also need to tune that top one up as well. So that one becomes a little bit F chord. You'd either mute the thinner string. If you put the little finger down, you end up with an F7 chord. But again, the point here is not to be afraid, it's to get creative and check out some of the songs that are using double drop D tuning. And just as you learn those songs, you'll discover, the tricks, the cool chord grips that you can use within these tunings. Let me just scroll down to my little list here of ones I was going to suggest for double drop D. Cortez the Killer by Neil Young. Like, one of the coolest songs ever. Really good example of all of the using some of the regular chords, but getting these interesting textures by having that the thinnest E string tuned down to a D. Going to California by Led Zeppelin, killer tune. Devils and Dust, Bruce Springsteen. Also, just these are mostly kind of acousticy ones, but it works just as well on electric guitar. All of these tunings work great on electric and acoustic. I just chose acoustic today because it's a little bit simpler, and we don't have to worry about the bridge, which I'll talk about in a sec. Body is a Wonderland, John Mayer, also another nice one here in double drop D. And if you fancy a bit of a challenge, Song for George by Eric Johnson. I've got a lesson on nearly all of those. Definitely Cortez, definitely Song for George. Body is a Wonderland I haven't got a lesson on, or Devils and Dust, but they're both on my list to do like in the next coming weeks. So by the time you watch this, they might be out already. Going to California, I think I did a lesson, but it might have got pulled. I need to check out on that one. But anyway, there's going to be plenty more lessons. And if you check out over on the website as well, on the songs tab, you can filter songs by the tuning as well. So you might want to go and check that out as well, because that's super handy if you want to explore some other tunings. Now, so double drop D, very, very creative, very cool. We're only one string away now from getting to one of the most classic open tunings, a proper open chord tuning, which is open G. So to get down to our open G now, all we're going to do is tune the A string down a tone. We can use the 3rd string as a reference. And we're in open G. Now the tuning now is D, G, D, G, B, D. So it's all G, B's and D's. I'll just throw my pick on the floor, that's always super helpful. It's all G, B's and D's, so it's an open G. But really important to realise when you're in open G is that the root note is on the 5th string, not the thicker string. Now, this is the reason why Keith Richards for a long time played a 5-string guitar, because that lower string, the D, kind of just gets in the way. It's not used that much in open G tuning. There are lots of times to use it and songs that use it really well, but if you're playing like standard bluesy sort of things or whatever, you're unlikely to be using that thicker string. So if you have a bar in open tuning, you want the tip of your finger there to mute the thicker string, and you're just going to play the thinnest string. The root note is here, is a tone above, like the old note name. Remember, this string that now has been tuned down as well. So a really nice way of seeing that is that would be a C chord, the very old school kind of way of fretting a A-shaped bar chord, and then those 2 outside strings have both moved up a tone, so you end up with everything on the same fret. That would be a C chord. That's a G. C is a D. Minor chords in open G tuning are a little bit of a pig. It's possible. I don't want to go into that yet. That's a bit more of a detailed thing. But just having the fact that you can play like any of these chords with just the one finger is very, very cool. The trick, though, with open tunings is realizing that especially if you want to play Rolling Stones, who you do loads of songs in open G. If you put your first finger down in the first fret of the second string and your second finger down in the second fret of the fourth string, you end up with this really nice move, like great for blues. Really hip. Same thing up at the fifth fret gives you the 4 chord. But this time obviously we're putting the second finger down 1 fret above the bar on the second string, third finger down 2 frets above the bar on the fourth string. Now, because it is all open, you playing that one chord on the 1 fret, it works really well for slide. Just grab a slide. This isn't going to be a slide lesson, but you can hear. So this is where one of the beautiful things with slide is having these open tunings where you can play a whole chord just in the 1 fret. And this is open G. Some songs that you might want to check out in open G. Brown Sugar, the Rolling Stones. I got a lesson on that. Bohemian Like You by the Dandy Warhols, which is very strongly influenced by Brown Sugar. Is another one that I've got a lesson for. I should know, actually on the Rolling Stones there are tons of songs. So like Start Me Up, Honky Tonk Woman. There are like loads and loads of Rolling Stones songs in open G. A lot of their biggest hits are in open G, so it's definitely worth checking that out. If you want something a little bit more complicated, Romeo and Juliet by Dire Straits. Again, I've got a lesson on that one. That's beautiful and using a lot more fancy chords there, but it's in open G with using a capo as well. Uprising by Muse, another really good one to check out. Bad to the Bone by George Thorogood is a nice simple one if you want to get into trying out, having a bit of a play around with the slide. Little Red Rooster by the Rolling Stones is also a really, really nice one to have a go at. These are just kind of classic blues things, and you can see there's nothing scary going on here at all. And getting back to regular tuning just involves tuning 3 strings up 1 tone. Okay, there's nothing going on crazy here at all. You might have heard of open A as well. So this is open G. If you wanted to do open A, it would be the same thing. You have to tune 3 strings up a tone, and it would be strings 2, 3, and 4 would go up a tone. But it's the same intervallic relationship, and you can get to open A by doing open G and putting a capo on the 2nd fret. That would be exactly the same pitches as open A. The difference is with open A, you have to tune 3 of the strings up, which then you're potentially looking at breaking strings. It'd be unlikely, but you're more likely to if you're tuning those strings up than if you're tuning the other ones down. Okay, so open G, open A, same things, just slightly different. The other really common tuning is open D and open E. Again, they're the same thing. I always prefer doing open D tuning than open E because we're tuning things down instead of up. And if I want to get to open E, I'll tune to open D and put a capo on the 2nd fret. Job's a good one, okay? So to get to open D tuning, we're going to put our G string back to the note A. So a little harmonic trick there. We'll use a tuner to get that to be a regular A. So now we're back to double drop D tuning. So everything's the same, the middle 4 strings, but the 2 outsides are tuned to a D. Now, to get to open D, we're going to tune the B string down to an A. So this is the 5th string is an A. And the G string is going to go down a semitone to an F sharp. So if you wanted to pitch it, it'd be the 4th fret on the 4th string would give you the note F sharp. Like I said, you want to be doing a little bit of this by ear, because sometimes it's not about it being exactly in tune as well. It's having it ever so slightly out of tune sounds richer and fuller. again, this is a real common one for slide guitar, particularly older school slide guitar. All of the strings are played. This is now an open D chord. We've got the notes D, A, D, F sharp, A, D. Interestingly, that same shape that we used in open G, but just up a string. So first finger going down on the first fret of the third string, and second finger going down the second fret of the fifth string. It's like playing an E7 chord. Gives you this nice, this would be a D6 sus4, I guess would be its technical name. It doesn't really matter what it is, but it just sounds great. Also, just putting second finger down, second fret on the fourth string. Really, really rich. This would be a D add 9. Also common in this tuning just to bar some of the strings on the some of the thicker strings and letting the other ones ring out. But this is great for slide as well. It's just a really creative tuning. Again, there's some killer songs in open D. She Talks to Angels by the Black Crowes, one of my personal favorites. I've got a lesson on that from 15 years ago or something. I filmed that lesson. It's a pretty old one, but a great tune. Even Flow, Pearl Jam, a great one in this tuning. Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones. Again, there's a whole bunch of Rolling Stones songs that use open E. Street Fighting Man. Wild Horses has one of the guitar tracks is in open E, I think. Love the One You're With, the Stephen Stills original version of that song. Really, really great one on that. A new one to me, which I haven't done a lesson on, but I absolutely love the song. I've started working on it, is The Tallest Man on Earth's song called The Gardener. So it's a little bit more modern, hip one that you might want to check out. It uses lots of interesting chord grips and cool things. It's not like traditional blues stuff like most of the other things that we've talked about on that list. Kind of got some sort of blues chord based vocabulary there. So we've done loads of different tunings now. We've explored a whole heap of different stuff. Nothing's happened to the guitar. The headstock hasn't just magically popped off. I haven't broken any strings. Sod's Law says I'll break a string now when I'm just tuning it back up, but that would be par for the course just because I'm doing a lesson on it. But I tune my guitar all the time to different tunings, and it just, nothing bad ever happens. So I really would encourage you not to be afraid of it and just to experiment. This particularly open D, it just sounds so nice that, running your finger. What I'm doing now. And just mucking around, you can just get these things. You can get into a little zone with yourself mucking around in this tuning. It just sounds really, really lovely. There are lots of other tunings, of course, that you might want to figure out. There's the Dad Gad, is a really interesting common acoustic-y one. Which of course, D, A, D, G, A, D, we're almost there. If we just tune that G, the F sharp. We're in some really interesting territory. Dadgad's not one that I've used a whole lot other than for specific songs, but it's super creative. A lot of guys, Mike Dawes, Pierre Ben Susan, those guys are using that tuning really, really beautifully. So another really good one, which is different to all of these, but the song Yellow by Coldplay, you can only really play that properly if you tune the thinnest string down a semitone. Okay, that one's it's a little variation on the tuning thing, but again, nothing to be afraid of. You tune it down, you tune it back up, nothing's going to happen. Daughter by Pearl Jam, a really interesting one that is open G, but then you tune the lowest string, the thicker string, up to a G as well. So you've got actually G, G, D, G, B, D for the tuning for Daughters by Pearl Jam. So lots of people use kind of these foundation tunings and experiment with them. That's totally cool as well. Just do it. Try out different stuff. There's no rules here, and I don't want you guys and girls to make the same mistake I made, which was just being afraid of it, thinking that, the neck was going to move or I was going to break strings all the time. The one thing that's a pain in the bum with changing the tuning of your instrument is if you've got some sort of floating bridge. So like if you've got a tremolo whammy bar, so not like on Gibson guitars, like on Fender Strats, if it's lifted up, okay, then when you change the tuning, it might lift up more or sink back down, and that makes the rest of the strings go a little bit out of tune. It's not a problem, it's not a drama if it's set properly. As soon as you go back to regular tuning, it'll balance itself back out. It's not a big deal. If you got like a Floyd Rose style tremolo, you don't want to try mucking around with open tunings because it's just a massive pain in the bum. So I usually do open tunings on fixed bridges. So like the pink guitar, I would use it on, in fact, nearly all of my guitars except that one in the background just there. That one has a floating tremolo, so I wouldn't do an open tuning on that because it's just a bit of a pain. Perfect excuse to buy a new guitar if you've only got guitars with whammy bars on it, which is never a bad thing, hey. And you'll find lessons on the website, much more detailed ones on a lot of these songs that I've mentioned, and also some lessons on particular grips for each of these tunings as well, because it's just a real fun thing. I love experimenting with tunings and the different chords that you get, and that it's just beautiful for textural stuff, for atmospheric things, for blues stuff, for slide guitar. It's just don't be afraid of it. Go and experiment now. Try out these different tunings. Experiment with the chords. Experiment with the chords you know. Experiment with just moving your fingers around. See what happens. There's no rules here. I want you to try and get creative. That's what I want to encourage you with in this very lesson. Hope you're having a fantastic day, and I'll see you for plenty more lessons very soon. Bye-bye.